Intel is in a bad state, and that's a bad thing for us. I never thought I'd see the day the company was struggling this much, but here we are. Their strategy has gone from spend, invest and take risks to cancel everything we're working on to save money, in the hope that this will turn our fortune around. And I just hope it works. I just don't see how it could work when their rivals are already succeeding, as well as spending, investing and taking risks. I certainly wouldn't want to gamble my nan's inheritance on Intel's future right now. When it comes to processors, Intel haven't been the favourite for several years. AMD found themselves in a similarly desperate situation in the early 2010s, and it wasn't until 2017 when they released Ryzen that their fortunes began to turn around. And that's only because they spent money and took risks. Since then, they've gone from being the plucky underdog to being the dominant behemoth in the industry, and now Intel are the ones looking concerningly fragile in comparison. When it comes to judging Intel's current situation, I broke down Intel's revenue and was surprised by what I saw, because I always assumed the sort of products you can buy in shops would be but a small fraction of their business, and that the bulk of their revenue would be made in the sale of server products and other stuff reserved for larger corporations. But it turns out that Intel makes more from their CCG sales, which is the kind of product targeting individuals such as yourself, or me, or your mum, or that small business down the road, since all these fall under the CCG category, which makes up 55% of their latest revenue report. So actually, I'm in a better position than I thought I was to be able to explain what they've done wrong. But first, let's see what their rivals have done right. With Ryzen, it was a new architecture, it required substantial investment, and it innovated by gluing small chiplets together to multiply performance and to keep costs low. And since then, every generation of Ryzen has improved on every aspect of this design. Ryzen's original AM4 platform is still sort of being supported, and their 3D cache is made for excellent gaming processors. Intel doesn't really have an answer to any of this just yet. But do bear in mind that 3D cache processors is but a very tiny niche market and doesn't explain Intel's greater struggles, which aren't due to just one factor. It's a combination of Intel selling the same old tech year after year. They've struggled to transition to smaller and more efficient nodes, which has given AMD the advantage. Intel's recent processors suffered from stability issues which eroded the company's reputation. Their cutting-edge generations of processors have suffered from disappointing performance and teething issues, and a new naming scheme that nobody recognises. I mean, why the hell would you create a new naming scheme for such a flop of a generation? Intel love to score own goals. But I think, really, a large part of Intel's downfall has simply been AMD's growing success and momentum, eating into Intel's stagnant and dominant position by providing competitive products at every price point. It has taken years for AMD to get the market share their products deserve, but now it does. Intel have finally woken up to just how fucked they are. Now let me explain why you should be worried for Intel. And it boils down to this. Competition is good, okay? Just like with everything you see online, I've seen the hardware market get increasingly polarized and radicalized, and people love to take the stance that one company is good and the other is bad. But to state the obvious, no company has your best interests at heart, and once they get a dominant position in the market, they will cash in on that, and that's not good for you. Up till now, we've been quite lucky in the processor market that AMD and Intel products have been so competitive. They've been trading blows at most price segments for coming up to a decade now, and this has kept pricing much lower than in the GPU market. Right now, if you're looking for a processor, there are still many great sub £100 options from both companies, which has helped keep computer prices low. I would say a decent mid-range processor is about £200, compared with the price of graphics cards where it's anywhere between £300 and £700. And that's why competition's good. And let's see what happens when there isn't competition. In more recent generations, as AMD has become increasingly competitive, they've started to neglect the budget processor market. The first generation of Ryzen was a budget builder's dream, catering to every price point in the form of £50 Athlons and £100 quad-core Ryzens. By their 3000 series, the supply of 4-core processors had started drying up, and by the 5000 series they didn't even release anything below the $300 5600X until over a year later, and their newer AM5 platform has only continued this trend. Intel, on the other hand, have almost always offered a full product stack every year, and there's value to be had in that approach. For instance, their 10 and 11,000 series of processors may have failed to impress in the high end, but in a time when AMD was neglecting the budget market, Intel did still provide offerings at lower price points, and also very competitively priced 6-core parts. I suppose AMD doesn't have to provide a full product stack every generation because their AM4 and AM5 platforms support multiple processor generations, so you don't necessarily have to get the latest generation to slot into a freshly bought motherboard. But I do still like the fact that Intel provides a full product stack every year, like clockwork, and one with relatively fixed prices at that. I tried to compare a tier of processor, and while Intel have hardly been innovative with their offering, they haven't taken the piss with their pricing and have been rather consistent with their releases and prices for over a decade at this point. Do I think AMD would stagnate if left alone in the processor market? I'm not sure. Intel certainly did when they were on top, and buying a processor before Ryzen was released was depressing because every year Intel would release roughly the same product for roughly the same price. And we stagnated in quad-core hell for a number of years. Christ, that was depressing. But the alternative could be even worse, and that's if AMD does the Nvidia approach by continuing to innovate, but to jack prices up every year, which in my opinion is just another form of stagnation. Because I don't see faster options at a higher price point as being progress. Progress is either getting a faster product for the same price as older stuff, or getting the same speed of processor but for cheaper. I think Intel is too big to fail. I think America knows that without Intel they'll be at the mercy of foreign interests, so I think Intel will be kept alive, financially at least. But just because Intel will be kept alive, it doesn't mean they'll be competitive. We might end up with a Firefox Chromium situation where there is technically competition, but only because Firefox is being kept alive for the sake of their appearing to be competition, rather than because they actually are competition. Again, I think that's sometimes worse than there being no competition at all. So I really hope, for all our sakes, that Intel can prove to be a worthy competitor that can stand on its own 2 feet. Let's not forget, Intel's got some great processor and graphics card tech. Their latest E-cores are very capable. The processors powering laptops and mini PCs are also really good. Intel's new tile-based processors have the potential to be very scalable in the same way that Ryzen is. And despite struggles with advanced nodes and chiplet-based designs, Intel have already used it to find clever ways to reduce power consumption and to squeeze more performance out of limited die-sized designs. And rumours of them doubling up on their core counts by using 2 chiplets instead of 1 also seem to make sense. All of the pieces are in place for their processors to actually be good again. They just need a few generations and a better process to get rid of the teething issues. Things don't happen overnight. It has taken many years for the design of new processors to finally reach the market. And today we're seeing the consequences of decisions made many years ago. When your business is creating processors, you need to look to long-term planning and commitment to carrying through with your designs. It's just a shame that Intel doesn't appear to be doing this. Look at their graphics cards. Everybody knows that building a new graphics card takes time. It requires effort and investment, both to produce the cards and then to iron out the driver issues across tens of thousands of different games and situations. AMD and Nvidia have been in the market for decades already. Intel weren't just going to catch up overnight, but they're one of the very few companies big enough to be able to invest in a new graphics card architecture, and up till now have shown promise of long-term commitment to this project. Despite all the challenges they faced, their first generation of graphics cards showed genuine potential, and their second is actually very competitive for the price point. Finally, decent $200 graphics cards again. But their new attitude of cost-cutting puts the future of their graphics cards in danger, which is a shame, because like I said, these last few years they've worked really hard at it, no doubt losing huge amounts of money on the project in the hope of establishing long-term trust. They've done the hard work, please don't pull out now. They've ironed out most of the teething issues to the point where I'm actually happy to recommend Intel's products like the £200 B570. Yet now suddenly I'm going to have to hold off recommending them again just in case Intel decides to discontinue them again in the near future. This is why Intel's new approach is so damaging, because it makes buying their products a risk. Intel cutting costs doesn't just kill off potential future products, it'll strangle whatever they already have, because nobody will want to invest in a company that sees no future in its products. A company could have the best products in the world, but if they signal they're going to wind everything down and discontinue everything but their core products, it's going to disincentivize people from going for them, especially when the rivals seem committed to their futures. Come on Intel, stop signaling short-term cost cutting and start promising long-term commitments. No matter how successful this cost cutting is, if you neglect your consumer base, then your foundations will continue to crumble until there's nothing left to rebuild from.